great day for the Middle East, and what does this mean to the world?
Welcome to this deep dive. Those are pretty powerful words spoken in Saudi Arabia.
They certainly are. Makes you stop and think.
Absolutely. And it really sparks curiosity, especially considering, it's been about 8 years since the speaker was last there in that capacity.
Right. And to really get what might be behind that statement, we kind of have to look at the history, the long-standing U.S.-Saudi relationship.
That's the 80-year partnership, right? Goes way back.
Exactly, over 80 years now. Back to 1945, Roosevelt and King Abdulaziz. It's often been called, a bedrock for security and prosperity in the region.
A bedrock, that's a strong term.
Yeah.
So the idea here seems to be about strengthening that bond even further, looking towards maybe a brighter future for the Middle East.
That seems to be the stated aim, yes. Reaffirming things.
Okay, so let's unpack that phrase, great day for the Middle East. What jumps out at you first about that claim? Well, the sheer level of optimism, I'd say. It's quite striking when you contrast it with that visit 8 years prior.
How so? What was the focus then?
Back then, the conversation was very much centered on driving out terrorism, dealing with extremism. Very different tone.
Right, a security focus. And now...
Now, the picture being painted is one of dramatic change within Saudi Arabia itself, under King Salman, Crown Prince Mohammed.
You mean the descriptions of, massive development?
Yeah, an unprecedented scale is the term used. Things like these incredible skyscrapers, Riyadh developing into this major hub business, culture, high-tech.
It sounds almost futuristic. The speaker mentioned seeing some of this directly.
Yes, personal observations were mentioned. And it's not just the buildings. It's about global positioning, too.
Ah, like hosting the World Cup.
Yeah.
And the World Expo.
Exactly. Those kinds of huge international events really signal ambition, a desire to be a major player on the world stage. It underscores the whole narrative.
And there's this economic angle, too, isn't there? Something about non-oil industries.
That's a potentially huge point.
Yeah.
The claim is that, for the first time, non-oil sectors are actually contributing more to the economy than oil.
Wow. If that's accurate, that's a fundamental shift.
It really would be. And it's mentioned alongside growth in other places, too, like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Muscat. It's presented as a broader peninsula trend.
So what kind of industries are we talking about here? Tourism, tech?
Those are likely candidates, yes. Tourism, technology, probably services, maybe even some manufacturing. But what's emphasized is how this is happening. Meaning the perspective given is that this isn't being pushed from the outside, by the West. It's presented as driven by the people in the region pursuing their own visions.
Contrasting it with interventions elsewhere, like Kabul or Baghdad.
Precisely. The idea is that this homegrown approach, embracing national traditions and heritage, is the real key to peace and progress.
Okay, that's a compelling narrative. So if this great day is happening in the region, what about the second part of that quote? What does this mean to the world? What are the supposed global implications?
The vision extends outwards. It suggests a Middle East that's moving, towards commerce over chaos.
Exporting technology instead of terrorism? Is that the idea?
That's the framing.
Yeah.
Building connections across different nations, different religions, rather than being seen as a source of instability.
But this vision clearly identifies a major obstacle, doesn't it? Iran comes up quite critically.
Very much so. Iran is portrayed as, a primary source of chaos and suffering across the region. Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, Yemen are mentioned.
And a contrast is drawn between that situation and the progress described in the Arabian Peninsula.
Yes, a stark contrast. Mentioning things like collapsing infrastructure, mismanagement, even a water mafia within Iran versus the development happening elsewhere.
It's a very pointed critique, but there's also an offer of sorts, a new path.
Right. An olive branch, maybe? A chance for Iran to have a better future if it changes its behavior. There's talk of ending past conflicts, forging new partnerships.
But what if it doesn't change?
Then the alternative presented is massive maximum pressure, driving oil exports to zero, preventing nuclear weapons. The message is clear. Iran could have a brighter future, but not with its current trajectory.
And within this framework, the speaker positions themselves as a force for peace, a unifier.
That's the role claimed, yes. A peacemaker and unifier.
Okay, let's look at some examples given to back that up. There was something about India and Pakistan.
Yes. Mention of brokering a ceasefire between them, apparently using Trimoon as leverage, with powerful leaders involved, it was noted.
Using trade to de-escalate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Efforts regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict were also brought up. talks happening in Turkey.
Acknowledging the horrific human costs there.
Definitely. And Saudi Arabia's role in facilitating those talks was given positive mention. It's presented as constructive diplomacy.
And the Abraham Accords fit into this too.
Yes. Highlighted as building momentum for peace, with the hope expressed that Saudi Arabia might eventually join. It's seen as part of this positive trend.
There's also that comparison made again, contrasting this approach with a previous U.S. administration's policy.
Right, the implication being that the previous approach, perhaps unintentionally, enriched or empowered certain rogue actors, whereas this is a different strategy entirely.
So, focusing on specific actions taken during the speaker's time, what was highlighted?
Well, the defeat of ISIS, the elimination of its leaders, presented as major counterterrorism wins.
Okay.
Also, healing the rift within the Gulf Cooperation Council, that was mentioned as important for regional stability.
And the Iran sanctions were brought up again?
Yes, reinforcing that policy, along with criticism of the subsequent administration for lifting them, and also military action against the Houthis in Yemen.
In response to attacks on ships?
Correct. Described as swift, decisive, and successful.
What else? Any other specific security actions?
Yes, the termination of other terrorist leaders mentioned in Iraq, Syria, Somalia, and also the capture of the person responsible for the Abu Ghraib attack in Afghanistan.
Though that last one was mentioned alongside criticism of the withdrawal itself, right?
Yes, it was framed within that context. There was also talk about efforts to free hostages held by Hamas, including a recent success with an American hostage.
And a clear condemnation of the October 7th attacks on Israel.
Absolutely. That was stated very strongly.
Finally, there seemed to be a look towards the future with Lebanon and Syria.
Sort of, yeah. For Lebanon, a new ambassador signals hope for a more productive partnership. For Syria, steps towards potentially normalizing relations, lifting some sanctions, a meeting planned, presented as opportunities for those nations.
Opportunities to achieve their own greatness, was that the phrase?
Something like that, yes. Framing it as enabling their potential.
So bringing it all together.
Yep.
What's the final overarching message, the big picture?
It circles back to that idea of a bright new day for the Middle East, a fundamental transformation.
Where the region is seen not as a problem spot, but as what?
As a land of opportunity, of hope, a cultural and commercial crossroads, basically, connecting East and West, a hub.
And the achievements there in building cities, in business, tech, are expected to inspire globally.
That's the vision laid out, a source of global inspiration.
Leading to this idea of a golden age of the Middle East.
Yes, and interestingly, linking that directly to a potential golden age of America, suggesting a kind of shared destiny, mutual benefit.
It's definitely a bold and optimistic vision. A lot to unpack there.
It is indeed. And, understanding these perspectives, the claims being made, the challenges acknowledged, it's pretty crucial for anyone trying to grasp the shifts happening in the Middle East and what they might mean for everyone else.
Absolutely. A really fascinating dive into these ideas.
Agreed. Lots to think about.
See you soon.